Okay, Gluteus Medius, part 1. We're talking about Gluteus Medius because, in my opinion, it is the most important muscle in the body. It's certainly the most important muscle in the lower body. And the reason it's so important is because it is the muscle that controls rotational forces through the hip. Now, the hip is the joint in the lower body that rotates. Most other structures in the body, below sort of your upper back, don't really like rotation very much. The ankle doesn't rotate at all, really. It has almost no rotation whatsoever. The knee, it has a certain degree of rotation, but it doesn't like it. If you look at the number one way we traumatically injure knees, it's always with a twist. So we don't want to have too much rotational force through there. The hip has the capacity to rotate beautifully. The low back, which lives right next to it, doesn't like rotation that much either. If you think of how many injuries happen to the back with a twist, that's not a coincidence. It doesn't rotate well. It doesn't have a lot of flexibility to it. So the hip is the structure that rotates. And the muscle that controls that rotation is gluteus medius, and then some of the other deep intrinsic muscles of the hip. Okay? Now, you're going to hear me say this over and over and over again on this website. The glute muscles have a tendency to become weak. And really, it's almost they have a tendency to become inactive or lazy. You know, lazy makes it sound like it's their fault, but it has a little bit to do with the neurology of it, the type of muscle they are. Certain muscles, in the presence of pain or discomfort or disuse, they become weak. Certain muscles become tight. Well, the glutes are muscles that become weak, and gluteus medius is probably the number one culprit. I love starting with glute med strengthening exercises. Is one of the first things I always teach because they're relatively easy to learn. They're very easy to tell when you're doing it wrong, and that's the most important part of any exercise, is that you know if you're doing it right or wrong. And you get the most bang for your buck with gluteus medius because so many of the injuries that we treat are really due to a lack of controlled rotation in the leg. So we're going to start in the next video talking about how do we actually strengthen gluteus medius, and then there's going to be another video that's going to talk about what do we do if we're having problems with this exercise.